Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show for your Monday afternoon edition. I hope you all had a great weekend. Yes, as the comments came through, I had a fantastic weekend. The shows up in Los Angeles were absolutely incredible, and it was just one of those things like I'd like to write an article about it from a couple different perspectives. I think in areas of our professions, we can find strengths and weaknesses or relatable items to everyday life. And one of the things I kind of encountered at the show, particularly on Friday night's show, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I went and watched Phish for 3 nights up at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. On Friday night's show, first set was okay, was decent. And then the second set, they came out and just showcased perfection on so many different levels. And what I took away from it was, your job as well as mine is to be the best that we can be at whatever it is you choose to be. For this show, for this program, I'm making the assumption that we all want to be the best traders that we can be. And, generally that's going to translate into, profits, making a lot of money, which to me is not the number one goal. I like to show consistency, track record, improvement, but never resting on your laurels and always understanding that I can get better no matter how far along I am in my trading career. So what I witnessed on the stage on Friday night was 4 musicians that, in my opinion, have reached that apex of perfection. That by themselves, any one of these musicians, whether it's Paige McCollum on keyboards, Trey Anastasio on guitar, Jonathan Fishman on drums, or Michael Gordon on bass, or even Chris Crota, the light guy, honestly, is the 5th member of the band. They all are so unbelievably talented at what they do that stand alone, they could be a band by themselves as a solo artist. And the challenge that I think I respect, that's why I go see Phish so often, is here I have 4 people who are elite at their instrument, at their game. But now the real challenge, once you've perfected something, is the ability to go and work with others and not let your perfection overshine any one of them, but to make an even greater pinnacle of achievement as a group of 4. To me, that's why I go see them every single time I can, and why I saw them 3 nights in a row. Of course, not one song was repeated. Every night was very different. Did they make mistakes? Sure, they made mistakes, but unless you're a very scrutinizing concert goer like myself, most people probably didn't even notice those mistakes. So yeah, that was my big takeaway, is just kind of reflecting on how I can take their art form, their music, and transcribe it to what I do, which, I like to think I'm very good at what I do. I know I can always get better, and the craft of trading is such a solitary thing. Maybe one day I'll work and be a group of trader, or build a group of traders, and we'll trade that way. But anyway, it was a phenomenal show for those that went. I met Brian, who's one of the viewers here up there. So Brian, good to see you on Sunday night. For those of you who've never been, no, next time Phish is in town and I'm going, I'll let you know. Maybe we'll meet up. Kind of BS that Phish did not get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Total BS, especially when you look at the bands that made it in, like the White Stripes. The White Stripes, what have they been around, a decade? Phish has been playing for 40 years and selling out more venues than White Stripes could ever even dream of doing. Not only that, but New Year's Eve many years ago, Phish at Madison Square Gardens came out for their New Year's gig. They always do some crazy theatrical performance. They came out on a giant New York hot dog, and they flew above the crowd. Right? They flew above the crowd, all 4 of them inside of this giant hot dog, flying above the crowd, throwing out knickknacks and novelties and souvenirs. That hot dog is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Phish is not. So, kind of strange. It just goes to show that voting is a biased game, but who cares? I'm sure they're not losing too much sleep over it. Ultimately, as a musical act, they should be in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, let's not make this about Phish. Let's make it about trading and investing. I did this as the market pause was kind of the title for today's show. And watching my P&L for my accounts today, I should have a neck brace on. Just be like, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm up big, I'm down big, I'm up big, I'm down big. And ultimately at the end of the day, finishing with a pretty darn good upside movement for myself today. But when you look at the candle here, we've got basically it's a doji. It opened, this is the S&P futures I'm looking at right here on a daily candle. It basically opened and closed about the same price. Very similar to the trading action we saw on Friday. However, Friday, at least you had a green body here. This is called a real body, the difference between where it opened and where it closed at. For the ES today, open and close at pretty much the exact same number. So that's really a reflection of indecision. Now, if we take a step back and look at probability and trends and combine those two things with today's price action, I'm curious what you guys think. Just based off that, what would you say the direction for tomorrow, if you from a higher probability perspective, would be? Would it be a day that the market is moving to the upside or a day that the market's going to move to the downside? And that's in the context of we've had this, you've made some higher lows. We've had a really big impulse move from the lows we saw on Monday, April 21st to where we closed at today. That's an 8% rally, all right? Talking 8.13% in 5 days. That's pretty phenomenal, okay? Pretty big run. So what's the probability here? That we have a big up day tomorrow or a down day? What do you guys think? I see you guys talking about Mariah Carey in here. Mariah Carey didn't get in either. Who the heck would nominate her for? Well, I wouldn't put Mariah Carey in as a rock and roll Hall of Fame, but certainly she deserves a place. She's an incredible artist, but nobody's got a guess. Here's where we're going to go. I figured you guys would be all over this one, chomping at the bit to give me your answer on this one. All right, well, I'll give you my take on it. The way that this is going, and this pause here today, that kind of spinning top, long-legged doji. August team says false breakout. Andre says green day. Tim says up. Les says more sideways. Yeah, that's kind of how I worded the show today when you talk about the market pause. Ultimately, this chart, all things being equal, when you see a chart that looks like this, the higher probability is that you're actually going to go to the upside, right? And the reason for that is the trend is your friend till the bend at the end. We have slightly broken through that little blue line I have on your screen, which is 55.09. That was the number to look for a shorting opportunity to the downside. And now we've broken back up above that one. So because you have these higher lows, that's your first indication that buyers are coming in and showing some strength. After a big move, right? So I've got those two factors. I've got the higher lows coming through. I also have that it broke this most recent swing high, which is from back here in April 9th and 10th. The important thing for today's action is even though we had a down day, it looked like we were down for the day, it's really didn't do much of anything. So there's no conviction. Today's price action represents lack of conviction, lack of opinion. The bulls weren't there, the bears weren't there. They kind of just bounced back and forth, which tells me that they're either waiting for something or that this thing is going to continue on its new trend, its current trend, which is to make higher highs. So we will see. I would put the probability as higher that we're going to see an upside move for tomorrow. Let's go and I'll put a yellow box just around the range for today and see how we do. So I'll take that blue line out, which is the 55.09, and now we'll just focus on that yellow box that is in there today. So it's very low SPY volume today. Yeah, I noticed that as well. So typically on an indecision day like today, I would much rather see high volume indecision as opposed to low volume indecision. Now remember, people have made 8% in the last 5 trading sessions. The average person, I think, would be really happy to take a profit here, which is why normally you see not a pullback, a correction, and we didn't get it. So to me, that speaks volumes of the sellers feel like there's more upside movement. The buyers, they're neutral, right? Not really doing much, but the sellers aren't selling either. So one of those two things is going to give, I like to look at that little yellow box as kind of your trading breakout range. We're in the middle of it right now. If it breaks above that box on the S&P futures, which can be 55.78, that's your long entry. If it breaks down below 54.92, that's your short entry. Other than that, just wait. That's a random question there, Margaret. Have I been to the Vatican? Yes. Not only that, but I was almost kicked out of the Vatican Museum on accident. Yeah, I was kicked out of... I'll tell you that story. Give me a minute, I'll tell you that story. I got to measure whether we're actually the right time to tell you that story on why I almost got kicked out. Big Ed says he took profit on MicroStrategy today. I rolled my options to the 377.50s, I believe. So I closed out the 6 I had, the call options, and rolled them. So I took a loss on that, but I also gained a bunch of premium on the second half. So slightly under on that one, but we'll see. I still think we're going to keep trending up here on MicroStrategy, but let's go deeper into the market. So that market pause, I love when you see markets like this. When you see things have a really sharp rally and then they hesitate right at the top, particularly if you have a long topping and bottoming tail. It wasn't long on the top, but certainly a decent bottoming tail on the S&P today. All in all, right now we're up 0.06% on the session, but that's indecision. That really reflects not a lot going on there. Again, low volume is a factor to that. To me, I'm going to have a bias towards the upside tomorrow. But of course, as we know, there is someone out there who can change this market in a heartbeat. Now, I wanted to use this as my thumbnail for today, but I was too, I'll be honest, I had a piece of paper. I was too concerned that I might get backlash from some of the audience. Not you necessarily, but some people out there. Just anytime I post a picture of this guy, I get grief for it. So I use it as inside as opposed to the thumbnail. And that was this one. So I have a picture here of the Donald, as Noam says. Yeah, the comments he made I thought were pretty interesting in an interview, what was yesterday? And he basically said, in the first term, I had to worry about fixing, I'm going to give the exact words here. He says, the first time I had two things to do, run the country and survive. I had all these crooked guys. And then he says, and the second time, I run the country and I run the world. Oh, man. Boy, if that doesn't have a Napoleon complex to it. So I think I talked last week about the shock and the awe and how we have Scott Bessent, kind of smoothing out the angst that Trump has been creating. And then Trump backpedals a little bit. Now making statements like this, it just accelerates the angst again. So it's interesting. Technically, the market looks like it should go up tomorrow. Based off of these comments, no ego at all. No, there's no ego. No, it's not at all. But based off those comments, to me, that's going to create more drama for the market. When you tell a world leader, Marcon or name a country leader, when you tell the leaders out there of the other parts of the world that you control the world, or you run the world, boy, that doesn't make a lot of friends. It does not make a lot of friends, and to me, it's going to create more uncertainty. So I'm torn here. I see bullishness on the way that the S&P is setting up, and I like the structure, but this stuff here, it could change it on a dime. And if I take them individually, I like the technicals for an upside move and slower, shorter-term trend going up. The uncertainty of Trump and Bessent and the comments that they're making, I do believe adds more downside pressure. So I know I sound wishy-washy here, but I feel like that's where I'm stuck. I'm stuck making these shorter-term trades. Luckily, most of my stuff is just a week long, but I've got positive technicals. The fundamental side, when I mean fundamentals, is the administration's comments, makes it very, very difficult. So that's where I stand today. It would anger global powers 100%. Oh, Bob. He does that to frustrate the haters. I know he does, Big Gab, but it frustrates the traders too, because just when you think you've got a real nice trade setup or a trend going, and like, right on, I joined the trend, I'm looking good. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, here's another bad comment to derail that trade like that. And it's frustrating, and I think some of you have been going through that. So that to me is one of the big variables in the market is going to be Trump's comments there on I run the world. Ooh, let's see what the pushback is there from global leaders over the remainder of this week. Now, we've talked about how the big unknown is how significant these tariffs are going to be on shipping, on imports, exports, right? How does it actually hit the bottom line numbers? And I saw a thing by Yahoo Finance today, which I actually really liked. It speaks volumes. And we looked at the durable goods orders last Friday. And those durable goods orders were significantly higher than the previous months. Why? Because people are jumping on board, trying to get as much from China and Mexico, wherever you want to get it from, trying to get it as quick as possible before those tariffs get implemented. Now that we have some new tariffs implemented, granted, many of the reciprocals are on hiatus, at least for a little while. Now we start to see new data coming in. So I thought this would be really interesting. Marcus says, my dark chocolate has gone up in price. Man, I remember when the Snickers bar was 20 cents. Here's an interesting one. This is major U.S. port sees massive drop in activity. This is the port of Los Angeles, one of the major ports in the United States. It says this is their weekly scheduled container volumes year-over-year change. Now, year-over-year, notice how quick it declines. For those that aren't watching this right now, I'll read you through it. On the week of April 20th, they saw a 56.03% increase in shipping container volumes. Why? Because people are trying to get everything from China they can today. Then on April 27th, literally 7 days later, it was a decline of 9%. The May 4th reading down 36.17%. This is a pretty ugly looking trend. And it shows the week of May 11th, which I don't know if that's going to change here going forward, down 0.63. Why do I bring all this up? Because we've talked so much about the impacts of these tariffs, and again, largely unknown to you and me exactly how they're going to impact the bottom line in the markets. But if we see these shipping ports, much lower volume, meaning both exports and imports, but really imports, it's an expectation that global demand is going to be slowing down, that we're not going to be buying as much from these other countries. And then that is that like domino with a Rube Goldberg game where the first thing starts rolling and now it hits this obstacle and a new challenge created and it keeps going and going and going. So this was a pretty important one. I love the chart because it really does speak volumes about how businesses tried to get as much as they could, and they might be sitting on a lot of inventory, which could carry them for a while. But after a little while, that inventory is going to get burned out, and then we'll see how this starts to increase our inflation numbers, our GDP numbers. I find it very interesting with regards to where our markets may be headed. This does not speak well of the future, meaning, another couple months out, if this continues on and keeps dragging. All right. Mark says, do you know anything about the swing indicator? I do not. Nope. I do not know about the Marty's wig indicator. Let's see, what else do I got? Would the current tariffs affect the upcoming big tech earnings Wednesday and Thursday? Chris, that's such a great question. And you look at when those tariffs went into effect, April 2nd. That was the hard line. We're starting off reciprocal. Those are the reciprocal tariffs. Now, there are already some tariffs in place with China, 25% here and there and other things. So I guess the question that I'm pondering to the whole audience here, it's not just me, Chris, because I don't know if I have an answer for it, is how long do we see before those tariffs start to have an impact, right? Is it impacting the bottom line? I don't believe it will impact the bottom line earnings yet. So when we have, your big tech companies reporting this week, you got Apple is the big one on Thursday. Will they reflect and say, hey, we're down X because of these tariffs? I don't think that the numbers will be hit yet. Certainly at the conference call, Apple is absolutely going to say, we're lowering our forecast because of the uncertainty with China, the tariff situation, the political instability. They'll come up with a laundry list of things, but I don't think we're going to see a big impact on their numbers yet. Nvidia, we've got a couple weeks before they report their earnings, but I don't believe we'll see big impact there. Marcus is not smart to kill tech. Absolutely. And Trump knows that. He knows that's the bread and butter for the U.S. markets right now. So if you take out tech and tech growth, then we're in bad shape. So, he's definitely backpedaling. That was that shock and awe we talked about. I don't know how well that's going to go. I think that a lot of foreign leaders, as I mentioned, are going to be like, oh, really? The small ones that don't have much power are going to roll over. It's the bigger countries, Europe, the UK, certainly China, high on that list of, you really want to push them around. I just want to make sure when Apple's coming out. So Apple and Amazon are going to be aftermarket on Thursday. And then we also have Microsoft reporting on Wednesday with Qualcomm. Going to be a big day, as well as Meta reporting on Thursday. So that'll be a pretty exciting day. But we just don't know, right? We just don't know which way that's going to go. Let's see. Right, I do know it's possible for forward guidance may be withdrawn. Yes, we saw that with, what did we see last week with... Who revised their forward outlook and removed it? Was it Tesla? I think Tesla removed their forward guidance, which that's not a good sign, right? They should have a good idea as to where things are going to go, but maybe we get more of that, which I think that will give the market jitters. And it's interesting, having said that, Tesla's numbers did not look good, and you look at what's gone on with Tesla since then, it's been really nice. Tesla's had a phenomenal run since that earnings release. I was blown away. I did not anticipate this at all. From the night that they reported earnings, to where we are right now on Tesla from a share price perspective, that's a 25.66% gain in 5 days on terrible numbers. Just goes to show. You never know. What did Chris say? Got that one. Reason being is off negativism appears on earnings or conference calls. It will affect the market synonymous. Yes, and again, I think we'd all agree that every company right now, everyone without fail, is using this as an opportunity to lower their guidance. So when they do beat it, then their stock soars again. So I expect this to be the common thread of this earnings quarter, is everyone lowering expectations, because it's the perfect time. You have the cover of all these tariffs and stuff to just say, oh, we're lowering. We expect a 50% decline in sales. And yeah, your stock may drop, but when you beat those earnings next time, they come ripping to the upside. Tesla right, but Musk threw out, I'll be back, and crank price. Yep, won't happen with others. That's true. He is such a such a cheerleader, rah guy. Again, I'm a fan, so. All right, what else do I have on here for today? Let's talk about these chip wars, because this is something that somebody asked me about this, my thoughts on Nvidia, and what's my take on Nvidia. Well, look, I'm still, that's not what I want to do. I'm still very bullish on Nvidia. For those that have been following, Huawei has this new chip, I think it's called the 910C. And that 910C is a clear knockoff of the H100. I mean, from what I've been reading, it looks like it's a clear knockoff. And remember, this has been the issue that our regulators have had with China, is they'll take something from the US, they reverse engineer it, they make a far cheaper knockoff, and that hurts our businesses. So right now, this, I'm pretty sure it's a C910C, got too many numbers in my head, a 910C chip, they're saying it's pretty much a straight knockoff of the H100. Remember, that with the new, the government is limited and basically shut down Nvidia from selling those over to China. So Huawei's coming out with something that could compete with the H100, but that's also a couple generations old. They haven't knocked off the Blackwell chip yet, and by the time China knocks off that one, there'll probably be something much more advanced. So does this really hurt the business of Nvidia? No, I think it goes back to what we've been saying all along, is this is such a tasty honeypot of business that Nvidia has, that a lot of other companies are going to try to jump in that race. And if you're Huawei or Samsung or Broadcom, I certainly would be looking at making some type of GPU processing chip that rivals Nvidia. It's just such a great market share item. So why not shift facilities and manufacturing to get something like that going? So I think you'll get more competition. I don't think it's going to break down Nvidia. That said, I sold a bunch of puts today on Nvidia. Got some pretty decent premium for the week. I sold let me put my numbers on here, just so you can have transparency. I sold the 104s, a little higher than I wanted to go, but I wanted also to get a better rate of return. So I got about a 1.2% rate of return for the week selling those 104s. Now we're currently at 108. So for it to get to a point where I find myself in a losing position, it'd have to drop about 4.48% more by Friday. And if it does, I'm fine with that. I just don't think that in a week it's going to get too far away from me on that one. What I got to be careful of is, obviously, when I get out here to May 28th, that earnings announcement, I certainly don't want to be holding Nvidia at that moment in time. I don't like holding those things through earnings. So, all right, let's see. What do we got? I sparked a bunch of comments there. So as of now, we have uncertainty. Yeah, and I think it's going to be... do we think that's going to change, Chris? Do you think the uncertainty is going to change at any time in the near future? I think we'd all agree that probably not, right? At least not for the next few months. It's not like we're going to come in here on Thursday and all of a sudden everything's clarified. We've got total certainty on our markets. It's not going to happen. Just in my opinion, no way. Let's see. No, remember, Nvidia's planned 5 years ahead. So hopefully they can stay 5 years ahead of, patent infringement, if you will. Is it another DeepSeek moment? No, not at all. DeepSeek actually, in hindsight, was great for AI because it showed the current leaders, right? OpenAI, Anthropic, even Google, Facebook. It showed them different ways to train the language model. So right now there's this race to create a language model, an LLM, large language model. And there's multiple ways to do that. And I think that our technology in the US has been focusing on one specific way. DeepSeek opened the door and said, hey, we're going to try it this way, and got tremendous results. This to me is innovation. It's collaboration. It's the way that you should be working for the greater good of everybody, not just one country. So DeepSeek posted their stuff, open source, showed it all off, which I was kind of surprised. And our technology companies immediately started to adopt those models. So you just made an advancement for everybody. And I don't think that DeepSeek is going to be that one that eats the lunch of all the AI out there. I think there's a lot of people that have made vast improvements, or companies have made vast improvements with their AI models because of DeepSeek. But does Huawei coming out with a knockoff chip, does that improve the overall landscape of the market? No, it does not. It simply creates an H100 competitor to Nvidia. So Nvidia does have some challenges here. I think that they just need to stay in front of it and don't worry about it. They're stealing your old. It'd be like you having the brand new, I'll use the truck example. I've got a brand new 2025 Toyota Tacoma. And they have now stolen and created a knockoff of the 2016. Different truck. It's a different model. And people want the newest, most powerful, latest up-to-date technology they can get. Can you buy the H100 and do something with it, or the 910C? Sure. It probably would be okay. But people want the big money is going to go to the big stuff. For smaller people like myself, let's say I wanted to train my own AI module at home and create my own large language model specifically tailored to me and the way that I do things. I'm not buying Blackwell, too expensive. But I might buy an H100 knockoff because I just need some computational power to make it work. Where does that? Because of tariffs, etc., companies may be expected to not give guidance, especially if there's negative those. I think you're right, Chris. I think it's just too dangerous for any company to latch onto a number and say, here's what we're going to achieve. At a minimum, you lower your forecast. I think everyone's saying that subtly, if not outright. But to put specific numbers on it, it's too much uncertainty. And that's the reason that I do think we're going to keep drifting lower, is because of that uncertainty. All right. So I got the chip war part out of the way. Again, I don't think that's a major issue for Nvidia, although there is a lot of negative press on Nvidia. And if you look at that trend, it looks pretty ugly, right? We could throw some moving averages on here and stretch it out to probably a 50 or a 30 would probably hug this pretty tight. Let me throw this into a 50. My guess is a 40 will be the one. Let's see. Yeah. So there's your 50 period moving average where it's hugging below it. Let's see if I can drop this to a 40 and get it even tighter, because I think that probably is the number. It just looked like it was. Yeah. So you can look at that right now, and from this perspective, it does look like, Nvidia is going to continue to go lower. We have not seen that moving average curl up at all. It's just been pointing down, 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 down. Even on this latest bounce up, it still is pointing to the downside on the 40 period moving average. That tells me that the bias here is going to be to the downside. That said, notice the most recent lows put in on April 7th, followed by a much higher low on April 21st. So we have found a footing. The question is, which one's going to give? Is this downtrend going to break, or is it going to just start to sell off from here? Technically, it looks like more downside movement. Because we have the downtrend, you're below the moving averages, and you have a bearish harami on the closure of a gap. So this really is a trifecta for going down, and I'm going long. Well, at least I'm looking to buy at 104. So if it gets down below 104 this week, I'm okay with that. I'll be happy with that. I'll probably be looking at selling even more puts down around that 96, 97 mark. There we go. Chris says, let's see how the Asian markets and EU work tonight. One more full session before big tech. Let's see if the market drops. But I think what you're going to get is just low volume. I think people are going to hold off just because you have such big names reporting this week. I mean, out of the Magnificent Seven, we've got 4. That's pretty big. That's a Wednesday and Thursday party for earnings. Now, it might not be a party, but remember, Tesla reported earnings that were atrocious and it's soared. And you have other companies that reported fantastic earnings and have been tanking. So make it make sense. Let's run through our top 8. At the bottom of the list, crude oil, which really has not done much. It's kind of been stuck in that range that John Rowland has talked about, which is between 60 and 65. Right now we're at $62 even, down 1.54% on the day. Nothing really exceptional or out of line here with that price chart. And again, if people are wondering why this is drawn here, this is just maybe I should label this, but it is the range that John had established, John Rowland of Bar Chart, who is a former NYMEX floor trader. It's the range that he kind of established as being the base price for crude oil, meaning the extraction costs. Now I'll have to do more research to get better numbers, but I trust John. He's one of the more experienced and knowledgeable people in the commodity space. Our 10-year, oh, beautiful. We talked about this being a higher probability of the upside. Well, that broke. And again, when your patterns don't work, you just delete them and move on to the next thing. So at this point, it looks like we're going to be trending even lower. This thing has been an absolute ping pong ball for quite some time. And these are pretty significant moves. That 10-year bond is at 1.15%, closing at a yield of 4.2%. This is really good for the broader markets. Again, cost of capital, real estate loans, etc. could help. However, if you look at the amount of debt that's being incurred, there's more and more debt being taken on. I got this feeling we're going back higher, but right now it looks like much lower on that 10-year based off this little trend break we have, and more downside movement potential there. Bitcoin also stuttering and faltering, not really doing anything today. Had a pretty wide range. As you can see by that candle, looks just like our market. And I forget exactly why we drew this yellow box in here. Why did we draw that one? 76 to 103. I don't know why that was drawn there. Let's get rid of it. The good news is we have broken that most recent swing high on March 26th. My guess is we'll have to retest at some point of probably 89,000, maybe 90,000 before testing the next overhead supply level, which should be right around 106. So fingers crossed we get that nice little move there and push this back to the upside. Your dollar index was down 0.65%, really sticking right to the numbers we talked about. We talked about these two yellow bands I have on my screen, which represents an overhead supply right around 99.63 and 100.27. And your demand zone, your floor there, which it bounced off already, 98.30 and 97.69. So conveniently hesitated there and now is selling back off. We're probably going to come back down to this demand zone. That should act as a catalyst for the equity markets to the upside. We shall see. NASDAQ did not make the podium today, fourth place. We've got some, I don't know what, remember all these lines that are drawn. I was drawing an ascending triangle here, or a cup and handle. We'll see if it actually comes back down and becomes an ascending triangle. But all in all, still looking decent. That little hesitation here, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out tomorrow. My guess would be look for a breakout of that range of today's candle. Breakout of today's range. And podium, there's your S&P 500. Now, I already drew the little range-bound market for the range of today in yellow. So really looking for just a breakout to the upside there for a long move, which would be great to close this gap, or a breakdown below that one. And again, that's going to be breaking the high of 55.78 or breaking the low of 54.92. Your Russell 2000 was slightly better than that, 0.39% gain. A little bit better of a picture because you had this green candle fall after this hanging man pattern. So the hanging man is, it's like a hammer, but at the top of an uptrend. So according to Steve Nissen, that's actually a reversal pattern. I actually think it's a bullish pattern. So I definitely contradict Steve Nissen's book. Just the psychology of yesterday's candle or Friday's candle on the Russell. Let me zoom in there so you guys can see it better. At one point, this was a solid red candle on Friday, and then it rallied to close right near the highs. That's actually really bullish. So I look at that as a bullish pattern. And lastly, gold. Right, you get a little bit of uncertainty in the markets and people rush back into gold, which really for the last 4 sessions has been pretty much just chopped sideways. You've got a green candle today, which based off the historical 4 days, we should see a red candle tomorrow. It was up 1.49% on the day, closing at 3,347 for gold. And there you have it. I saw you guys talking a lot about VIX. Yeah, that VIX has definitely come screaming back down. We're back in the middle of those two bands. Remember, those bands represent the time to buy, time to sell. Above 40, they say it's time to buy. Below 20, it's time to sell. And we're screaming back down towards that lower end of the band here, which would imply that it might be time to sell. But you got plenty of space there. We're at 25 right now. The historical models are 20 and 40. So if it gets below 20, in theory, you should think about selling. I don't know if I would be selling there. I don't like VIX as a trading indicator. Price is where we should be looking for the indicator. All right, Chris says Meta, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. Yeah, that's definitely what we've got cooking for later in the week. Let me go and show you those just so we can have. So on Wednesday night after market close, I certainly will talk about this because it's a multiple popcorn trade of the week, right? We've got multiple ones here. I should change that to day of the week. You've got Microsoft and Meta. That's going to happen Wednesday after market close, which means I expect tremendous volatility on Thursday markets open. But then you also have on Thursday night, on the close, after the close, you have Apple and Amazon reporting earnings, which again, two major tech players here. So Thursday and Friday, from my perspective, are going to be your two really busy, aggressive days in the market. Should be pretty exciting. All right, let's go to tomorrow's. So let's go to Tuesday's earnings here. We do get some names, nothing quite as big as Apple or Microsoft or Amazon or Apple, but here you have Visa, Coca-Cola, Novartis, AstraZeneca, HSBC, Bookings, S&P, Pfizer, which has been a steaming pile of doo-doo lately. That thing looks so bad. At some point, Pfizer is going to be a great buy. You have Spotify, Starbucks, Modellens. These guys have the control over the most popular beer in the world, I believe, right now is Modelo. And I think that they own Modelo. UPS as well. So you have a ton of different stuff coming out. Let's just look at PFE, just because this was one that Michael had been asking about. And I just look at this chart and just screams just awful. Just absolutely awful. Going back into 2022, this thing was over $65, and now it's at 23. As a company, they've got to have something going wrong because you got so many different drug products. Your profit margins are great. Something's rotten in Pfizer to cause them to be down this much. But ultimately, you'll get down to a book value, right, where the value of their assets, their patents, and all that stuff will be worth more than the share price, and then it might become an acquisition target or something will change. But right now, not liking it. Although it's been a nice rally for the past 2 weeks there on Pfizer. Okay. That is it for OG. Let me go and show your economic calendar. And if you guys have anything you want to discuss, let me know. I come bearing bad news, actually. I have another friend in town who I will be taking to the airport tomorrow, and I will not be doing a show tomorrow. I know, I hate it. I want to do a show, but I got friends in town, and I consider you guys family, and it's friends and family, but I got to take care of my friend tomorrow, so I don't think I'm going to get a chance to do a show tomorrow. I know. Send in the hate comments. My apologies. But yeah, I'm probably not going to do a show tomorrow. I'll let you know on Twitter. It's the Robert F. Kennedy effect on Pfizer. Is it just Pfizer? Or is it other ones? Yeah, Big F. I knew you were going to say that. I knew someone was going to go, tell them to take an Uber. Now, when they're good friends, you don't let them Uber. You drive them to the airport. It's nice that they came down and visit. This is actually, it's, when you have those really good friends from when you grow up that you just have long-standing friendships with. He's the guy that I go to every year, at least once a year, to go see fish. So we've traveled around the world to go see them, and he came down for the weekend. So I owe him that much. We'll pay for it. Margaret, now I'm gonna take a reprieve tomorrow. My apologies. I know. The consistency is struggling on this show, I'll tell you. There's so many things going on. Where was I going to go? Oh, yeah, economic calendar for Tuesday. So we really had nothing today that was of interest, but tomorrow we do. This housing discussion, I think, is going to become much more prevalent in the coming months as that 10-year jostles around and starts to impact home buying. Here is that Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index. And if you look there, you can see that prices have been slowly increasing, which is great, right? Anybody who owns a home, you want to see this number continue on up. You don't want that decline like we saw back here in 2023. But this represents the housing prices in 20 major metropolitan areas around the United States. So you want to see this continue to move to the upside. The higher this goes, it's the creation of wealth. I know it sounds weird, but for those of you who own a home, you want to see this. You'd love to see 20% year-over-year growth in your home value. Right, 4.7, it looks like it's been slowly ticking higher and higher and higher. I hope to see this trend continue for markets. I want to see this number continue, even though I do believe historically it's below historical norms. Let's zoom way out here, see how far back I can go. This is all the way back into 2007. Yeah, I would say it feels like historically, if you go back to 2007, we're above the norm because that big drawdown in the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. So there we go. All in all, I do want to see that number continue to move up. Expectations are right now it's actually going to go down. Remember, we did have some 7% mortgages, and I think that may impact prices. One thing that was noteworthy is houses for sale in certain areas. We talked about this a while back. There's been nothing for sale in my neighborhood. And actually, there was a couple that have sold within the past couple of years, but they didn't even make it to market. They sold before they were even put on MLS. which is interesting. I talked to one local realtors. He just listed 2 properties within 1 week. There's actually a house right behind mine. If you guys want to move in next door. Right down the street, and then there's another one a couple blocks over. And to me, that's kind of what I saw back in 2008 and 2009. It was like there was nothing going on. Then all of a sudden, when you see a lot of houses come onto market, that's when prices started to drop because you have supply coming in. And I think some people were talking here about Phoenix and how they saw very little supply, and now some supply is coming back, if I remember correctly. Must be a very low price. Are you talking about the real estate by me? No, they're not low prices. They're very high. And I think that's part of it, is you get people start listing at a very high price, and then others will go, oh, wow, they're selling for that much? I'm listing mine too. And then you get that price drop. We'll see where in that cycle we are. It was just interesting that nobody was selling, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing multiple houses come to market. And maybe that's the same thing in your neighborhood. It's probably like 3 million. But yeah, this area that I live in is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's one of the ones that's for sale is I think it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot home. It is beat up. It is bad. It is bad. It has atrocious 1980s carpet in it. The cabinets look like they were built in the 50s. I mean, it needs a complete remodel inside. They want, I think, $1.3 million for it. $1.3 million for what, in my opinion, is a dump. It's really about location. My neighborhood, lucky me, in hindsight, come to realize this is one of the nicer areas where I live, and it's a lot of gentrification of the businesses around here, so it's turning into a pretty nice spot. But it's all families. It's all families, and everybody wants to live in this area. So yeah, $1.2 million for a dump. It needs at least $300,000 to get it all back up to speed. So the other one that's listed, I think, is $1.6 million for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I think it's 1,500 square feet. I mean, that's a lot, man. It's expensive to live out here. Very. It hasn't sold yet. It just listed starting this weekend. So I'll let you guys know how quickly it sells. It listed, open house was this weekend, or last weekend. So it's been just a couple of days. My guess is we will already see offers and probably sold within 7 days. Both of them. Merlin, thoughts on JD breaking 30? You mean at JD.com? Like as in JD, like the actual ticker symbol JD? Yes. Okay. Just making sure, because we don't usually talk about this one. JD is a fairly illiquid one. It doesn't have the volume requirements. You look. Actually, let me take that back. I take that back. I for some reason I was thinking something else. It does have plenty of volume. So do I think it's going to hold that 30? Let's put a horizontal line on that $30 price target for you. So that's roughly the closing of this gap. Man, you got all kinds of crazy gaps. Do I think it'll hold? For whatever reason, JD doesn't look very good. Obviously, you're dealing with a Chinese company here and probably going to continue to struggle. So I would be cautious on trying to pick that bottom. If this does continue to go on with the tariffs and everything, then this is going to go much lower than 30, simply because of the tariffs. And here's the other issue. Remember, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, has been saying, we're going to get a resolution, we're going to get a resolution, we're going to get a resolution. He came out yesterday and said it's up to China to resolve this, to de-escalate the trade war. No, the fact that you just jumped tariffs up to 100+%, it's up to you to de-escalate. You escalated it. Now it's their job to de-escalate it. We shall see. I don't know. I'll be nervous about this one, honestly, NJ, just because the trend looks real bad. And while I hope this all gets resolved, if it doesn't, that's going to impact their business more and more, and it could see it go lower and lower. I mean, certainly if you're looking at selling puts at that $30 mark to collect some premium, I wouldn't do it out more than a week so it doesn't get too far away from you. Okay, let's see. We got all kinds of stuff. Is it next to the beach? I'm not next to the beach. I would say by car, I'm probably about 10 minutes. I ride my bikes down there. I get electric bikes, so I ride my bikes down there a lot, but close enough. Close enough to be away from the pretentiousness of it and not smell coconut oil all the time from the sunscreen. Still bearish, short of some more. Yeah, true. It's just, and I've been saying this a lot, unless it's a real solid business, I'm kind of apprehensive about putting a bunch of exposure in my accounts on any one symbol. It's why I've been spreading it around. I am optimistic that I'll probably keep that MicroStrategy just because it's just been yielding so much. I'd like to get out of my SMCI, and then I'm happy to own Nvidia and maybe a couple others. Let's see. Let's look at the SPY monthly. Oh, shall we? Let's look at the SPY monthly, SPY. Let's do it. We got time. Although I do have to get to a meeting. So here's your SPY. Let's go bust this up into a monthly time frame. And let me move some of these lines because it's kind of hard to see when you have it on a monthly. So your question, and I know what you're going to say, is, oh, that is the mother of hammers, right? It's this gigantic, massive bottoming tail here on the SPY. In principle, Naum, I know exactly what you're thinking. You would be like, okay, if you're looking at that, then this should be the mother of up moves, right? We should see just an absolute slingshot move, and SPY now trading at $700-800 based off of that. I don't think that's necessarily the case. If it was just price action by itself, not being influenced by so much political stuff, I would agree with you. I'd actually be thinking that this symbol here would rip, but I just don't trust it. Yep, big hammer formation. We'll see. My guess is this. You're also looking at the April one. You know, we're not going to get much more downside movement. You only got a couple days left of the month, so it'll certainly end the month on a giant hammer formation. And I guess if you're going to play it that way, what should you do? Well, you put a line across the top of this month's candle, which would be a high price of $567.42, and you play that as a break. What goes up must come down. Yep, absolutely. Just too much uncertainty for me to load the boat on that one. If this was a normal market, normal market, meaning I don't have a president who's tweeting out things at all hours of the night that could cause catastrophic moves in the markets. If I remove that from the equation, so let's say we go back to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden would never really tweet out anything that Trump does, right? He would never tweet this stuff out. I would look at this and be much more bullish. Absolutely. But that uncertainty that Trump represents just makes me too nervous about going for it. But go for it. If you like to, there you go. If you like it, go for it. TD, it's best to buy the worst house in the nicest neighborhood than to buy the best house in the worst neighborhood. Absolutely. I totally agree with that one. And it's funny because I actually looked at that house. I thought maybe I would make an offer on it, but I know it's going to sell. You know, if I could pick that one up, it's close enough where I could just do all the handyman work and redo all the interior and stuff and flip that house. Or just be a landlord with it that close to me. That'd probably be pretty good, but shied away from it. I shied away from it. Okay, that will do it for today. If you guys have something you want me to discuss on Wednesday, because I'm not going to be here tomorrow, my apologies. I know, you're like, you take all this time off, you took Friday off, you're taking Tuesday off. That's it. Talk to my boss. Go yell at my boss, and we'll see if he's going to raise my salary. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, sorry for Friday and tomorrow, but life, IRL, in real life, matters significantly to me. So I'm going to go spend some time with some friends, as I did Friday. Yeah, and if I can find a link to the Fish Show, at least the second set, there's a song called Light. I'll see if I can find that link for you guys, because it was in the middle of that where you had 4 musical artists all doing their own thing, but making absolute beautiful harmony as professionals. It was pretty amazing. Dock my salary, Garfield. Do it. Take it. All right, everybody, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. Again, if you have comments, questions, things you want me to discuss on Wednesday when I'm kind of getting back to normal, email me, tradermerlin@gmail.com. That said, take care, everyone. I will see you tomorrow.